Hello, my name is Matthew Williams, and today we're going to be examining Tropicana's Take a Mimoment PR crisis. To start things off, what happened? What is the Take a Mimoment crisis? In late 2020, in the heat of the pandemic, Tropicana hired a PR firm to survey 1,000 American parents, and the survey found that out of those 1,000 parents, 87% reported parenting to be so chaotic that these parents routinely felt the need to take a moment for themselves. And with that information, in the first week of December 2020, Tropicana launched its Take a Mimoment TV and digital media campaign. Take a Mimoment encouraged parents to take a break from the stress of pandemic parenting by enjoying a mimosa, and of course made with Tropicana orange juice. The campaign, complete with multiple celebrity collaborations, featured a series of photos of incognito mini refrigerators, and they looked like toolboxes, dresser drawers, and bathroom toiletry cabinets filled with champagne and, of course, Tropicana orange juice. So 3 things made up this campaign. Incognito mini fridges, and they were featured in a variety of ads, mostly social media and television. The campaign showed parents and celebrities sneaking away for a Tropicana mimosa, and the main idea was for Take a Mimoment to help parents get away, sip a mimosa, and feel the stress of pandemic parenting slip away. So let's take a look at the flagship Tropicana Take a Mimoment ad. This is what most people saw. Of course, you've got your toiletry cabinet, that's now a fridge, a toolbox fridge, and a dresser drawer fridge hidden in the closet. And this conveys the idea that unbeknownst to anybody else, you as a stressed out parent can sneak away, get in a fridge, get your mimosa, and have a moment away from all of the stress. Here is an example of the celebrity collaborations. This is Jerry O'Connell having his Mimoment. The Take a Mimoment campaign lasted for about a week before crisis struck. And why was there a crisis? Well, according to the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, 29.5 million Americans over the age of 12 suffer from alcohol use disorder. Everybody knows somebody who suffers from alcohol use disorder. And because of that, the public response was overwhelmingly negative towards the Take a Mimoment message. Social media users criticized the campaign for being tone deaf and promoting secretive alcohol consumption as a coping strategy for stressed out parents, especially during the pandemic when you couldn't go anywhere, you were more stressed than ever, and addiction rates were on the rise. Addiction recovery advocates especially condemned the messaging as promoting a dangerous and irresponsible path straight to alcoholism. In short, people criticized the Take a Mimoment message because they thought Tropicana was promoting unhealthy drinking and parenting practices. Now let's go back to 2020 and look at some of the social media posts that criticized the Take a Mimoment campaign. Of course, I can't read all of them for the sake of time, but you're more than welcome to pause and read some of them. I will focus on these 3 tweets because I think they sum up how people were feeling about the Take a Mimoment message. I'm not mincing words here. This message is exceptionally dangerous and is counterintuitive to increasing awareness about addiction. Tropicana is encouraging stressed out parents to cope by increasing alcohol consumption during the day while parenting kids. Do better. Normalizing sneaking into a bathroom or closet to drink alcohol alone is incredibly irresponsible and shows how deeply alcohol abuse is ingrained in our society. Finally, on the phone with Tropicana in regards to their mommy needs to hide in the bathroom and drink mimosas in the morning ad. This is dangerous, and I am horrified. Moms need a break, not to be drinking at 8 a.m. in the bathroom. Instead of talking about evidence of crisis preparation, it's better in this case to talk about a lack of crisis preparation on Tropicana's part. There was no anticipation here, and anticipation is a foundational pillar of crisis communications. A communications team, when they craft a campaign and they're about to send it out for the world to consume, they've got to ask themselves before they send out that campaign, how could this message be interpreted in a way that we don't want? How can this message be interpreted negatively? Tropicana here failed to ask, how could this go wrong? And you've got to ask that question as a communications team. Problem drinking was well documented during the pandemic. The rise of problem drinking was well documented during the pandemic. And that should have been noted, that should have been accounted for. And if it was, this crisis would have never happened. It is time to talk about evidence of impact. And in the short term, there was negative impact. Number one, financial loss. Tropicana paid a lot of money to a PR team to do market research. They paid a lot for advertising space. And celebrity collaborations are not cheap. There was no return on investment for any of that because Tropicana had to take down the Take Aim a Moment campaign about 2 weeks after its launch. Number two, there was public outrage. And if that wasn't managed properly, that could have led to a risk of long-term reputational damage. But speaking of the long term, the crisis was averted very well by Tropicana because they released an immediate, well-crafted response. And before we break that response down, to prove my point, this is a graph of refrigerated orange juice sales 2 years after the Take Aim a Moment crisis happened. And we can see that Tropicana is number one in all brands of refrigerated orange juice in the United States in terms of sales. So they're number one, they're doing well, and that's the most important thing with the crisis communications team. Can you make sure your company is still making all the money that it can make? And that was happening. Here is Tropicana's crisis response. It worked very well. It was released about 2 weeks after the Take Aim a Moment campaign launch, released on December 15th, 2020. And it is beautifully constructed. Take a moment to pause this video, read it in full, and then in just a moment, I'm going to break down why this was such a great response that allowed the crisis to be resolved. Very briefly, here are some keys to a successful crisis response. When you're drafting a crisis communications response, you want to make sure that you include some or all of these elements into that crisis message. You want to apologize. You want to acknowledge the crisis and its impact. Show empathy. Make sure those who were affected feel heard and understood because that's really all anybody wants when they're hurting. You want to explain how the situation will be resolved. And of course, don't be defensive. Make sure the message is clear, jargon-free, and easy for a wide variety of audiences to understand. And the message must be quick. You have to respond quick when crisis is happening because it helps the organization avoid their crisis growing at an exponential, perhaps unmanageable rate. As I said before, Tropicana's communications team constructed a beautiful crisis response that allowed the Take Aim a Moment crisis to be averted. And I think we can learn a lot about it as future professional communicators, so it's worth breaking down piece by piece. Here are the elements that made the crisis response so great. Number one, we want to apologize to anyone who was disappointed in or offended by our recent campaign. They apologized. The intent behind it was in no way meant to imply that alcohol is the answer or make light of the struggles of addiction. They acknowledged the crisis and its impact. We hear the feedback that for some, we've missed the mark. Accordingly, we're ceasing any further activity in support of the campaign. They explained how the situation will be resolved, in this case, by terminating the campaign. We value the comments and perspectives that have been shared, and we will use it as a lens for evaluating further campaigns. They showed empathy, and they made sure that those who were affected by the Take Aim a Moment campaign in a negative way feel heard and understood. Of course, they responded quickly. The response was published on December 15th, so just days after the crisis began. They were not defensive, and they used language that is easy for a wide variety of audiences to understand, and there was no industry-heavy, jargon-heavy language. My name is Matthew Williams. Thank you for listening to my presentation of Tropicana's Take Aim a Moment crisis and how they resolved this situation.